And welcome back to the Steve Malzberg Show. I'm John Bachman filling in today, and we're honored to have Professor Alan Dershowitz with us in studio. His book is called Taking the Stand, My Life in the Law. It's a pleasure to talk to you, Professor Dershowitz. All right, so everyone's talked about this Amanda Knox case. She was convicted of murder, then in an appeals court throughout her conviction. She came back home, and now she's been convicted again. Talk about this court and the fact that there's really no parallel to anything like this in the American judicial system. In the United States, you have one jury trial, and you're either acquitted or convicted. If you're acquitted, it's double jeopardy. In Italy, it's very different. You're convicted, and then you have a right to an appeal where you can add new evidence and testify. And she was acquitted by the second court, having been convicted by the first, and then the conviction has been reinstated. Now she stands convicted of murder. And there is an extradition treaty. Do you think she will be required to go back to Italy? Well, it's hard to tell. Legally, she should be required if her conviction is affirmed, but she has been conducting an incredibly successful media campaign. I have to tell you, in 50 years of practicing law, I have never seen a more one-sided presentation case. Everybody is saying there's no evidence against her and she's totally innocent. That's just not true. And most people are talking about that, or most media outlets are talking about that. They make it seem like these charges have been ginned up against her, that she is being framed here, but there is specific evidence, and talk about that. Well, there's a lot of evidence. In fact, I would say that there are thousands of Americans in jail today on the basis of far less evidence than there is against Amanda Knox. Number one, she first admitted she was at the crime scene and then denied it. Second, she falsely accused somebody who was totally innocent of committing the murder. Third, she turned off her cell phone during the relevant period of time. Fourth, there was DNA found underneath the bra strap and on the knife. It wasn't enough to establish conclusively that it was hers, but it certainly pointed in that direction. There was a pool of blood with a footprint, and the man who was convicted of the murder blamed it on her, testified against her. The court found that it couldn't have been done by one person. It had to be done by at least two people. And so, do I think she's guilty beyond a reasonable doubt? Maybe not. But would I want my son to go out with her on the basis of a claim that she's totally innocent? Absolutely not. I was going to say, you sound like a prosecutor in that scenario. Well, somebody ought to be the prosecutor. Somebody ought to stand up for the victim in this case. In America, everybody's ignoring the victim. Everybody is pretending as if the Italian court system is the Iranian court system, and as if they made up all the evidence against her. Well, make some sense of this Italian court system, because to a lesser degree, that's part of the whole sideshow here. It's like every other European system, just different than the United States. But we have a treaty, and our treaty requires us to recognize the validity of Italian court judgments. The Italian court system is not the best in Europe. It's not the best in the world. But it's not this, circus act that a lot of people are making out to be. It's far better than the United States when it comes to poor people or minorities. We convict more innocent poor people and minorities in this country than Italy does. So we can't go around lecturing other countries about our system of justice, how much better it is than their system of justice. But the most important point is not to make a hero out of this woman. This woman pointed a finger of accusation at a totally innocent black man, said he did it, they put him in jail, and then she said, sorry, never mind, it wasn't him. And the preoccupation with this case and everything that comes with it is boiled down basically into one thing. One word: she's pretty. And she doesn't look like she did it. And Americans care about what people look like. She's the all-American young woman, and we don't care about the evidence. And you see the interviews that are being done with her on television. Nobody asks her a hard question. Nobody presses her lawyers. It's just so one-sided. And if I were the family of the victim here, I would be outraged at the way the American media is treating this case. Now, if I were her family, I'd be outraged at the way the Italian media is treating this case. They're treating this case as if she's Al Capone, as if there's no question about her innocence or guilt. It's become black and white. In Italy, she's guilty beyond any doubt. In America, she's innocent beyond any doubt. The truth is, it's a very close case. There's a lot of evidence of guilt. There's some evidence of innocence. On balance, I think it's more likely than not that she did it, but there's not enough evidence to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. And so, what do you see? How do you see this case playing out here? In terms of the extradition here, and if she does in fact go back, she's not going back. She's not going back. She's not going to go back. What are her options then? I mean, because there is the legal framework for her to be extradited. There's a treaty between the U.S. and Italy. So what are her options?
Treaties are political, and she is conducting a campaign today politically, and a lot of politicians are on her side. She's the American sweetheart. The political pressures not to send her back will be very considerable, and in the end they may prevail, but not on legal grounds, because the double jeopardy argument is not a valid argument. She never was exposed to final acquittal. Her acquittal was a temporary one. It was an intermediate court subject to appeal. So under American law, that wouldn't be double jeopardy, and under Italian law, that wouldn't be double jeopardy.
All right, well, a lot of talk about with Amanda Knox, but we'll leave that aside for a second. Coming up later in the show, we have a political roundtable coming up with Charles Payne from the Fox Business Network, also Dan Epstein from the group Cause of Action. Plus, we'll have more with Professor Dershowitz, who will be back to talk to us about Dinesh D'Souza, the conservative filmmaker who's being prosecuted by the DOJ for campaign contributions. And we'll also talk about the Boston bombing case and Dzhokhar Tsarnaev. We'll be back with you soon, and we'll be back with you guys as well with more.
The Steve Malz